And we're going.
We are going.
That is so much louder than it was before. Holy shit.
Well, that's a good sign. So, welcome to Your Time Starts Now, a Taskmaster podcast. He's Joe and I'm Emerson. We've never said it in that order. That's weird.
No, we haven't. And I'm turning down my gain a little bit because there we go. So my audio software shit itself and died a second ago.
This is actually our second time recording. Thankfully, we only got about 5 minutes in, so it wasn't too big of a loss.
And 2 of those were me trying to figure out why the microphone had stopped working. So,
the funny thing is, because me and Joe had Joe was saying his microphone was too quiet the first time we recorded, and so I said it personally. It sounds fine, just don't deep throat the mic. And that moment it just went quiet, and I thought Joe had just given up on me completely because Joe doesn't like it when I make references to anything sexual in the slightest. That is not true, Emerson. You just make it weird when you make those jokes. But more to the point, as you said that, I was poking the back of my microphone to try and turn a switch down, and I guess it just turned the microphone off. The best part is when I actually heard Joe again, it sounds like he was deep-throating his microphone. Yeah, as it turns out, for behind the camera stuff, I use NVIDIA Broadcast as a noise-canceling software, and I guess I hadn't turned it on, but the program was running in the background, so my computer was basically having this very, very quiet audio stream, and then I woke NVIDIA Broadcast up by clicking it, and it was like, I'm here, and then it made all the noise. So now I have the gain all the way down on Audacity. Something just stop it from peaking off. Joe, stop talking a second. I'm trying to say something. So my parents' computer, my mum's computer is here, and it's just sitting off to the side open, and it just suddenly pinged away because notifications came on for the computer, so I'm going to have to close it down. Not my computer, my mum's computer. And it just because the ping notification that you got an email scared me. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's funny. God, this is so much louder looking than it is now. I'm going to have to apologize to you in the edit because Audacity also stopped, and it actually it's like this is like the same recording file but 3 minutes in, so you're going to just have a massive jump in audio volume at the 4-minute mark. You didn't start a new track completely? I hit the record button thinking it would start a new track, and that is not how Audacity works. Oh dear. I don't know how much time I'm going to have tomorrow to do all this crap. Anywho, you don't have to do much. So today we're going to be talking about Taskmaster Series 8, Episode 3. What was this one called again? Stuck in a Mammal Groove. Stuck in a Mammal Groove. Thoughts on the episode, Joe? Deeply solid. Not everything has to be a banger, but this one didn't suck. Yeah, this series has not had many sort of grab you in moments yet, which is I don't know if it's a good sign or not, because last series had a lot of those, especially in the first episode. And here we are, we're just sort of plodding along at the same pace with this series. We've not had any strong emotions to anything so far. I don't mind this not being a banger. This is sort of because this is showing that even with a, middling season and set of tasks, because this is getting to the point where some of these tasks are just this is kind of bullshit. The fact that it's just sort of working solidly is good, that it's because the cast is great. It's just that, nobody here is swinging for the fences. Okay, let me rephrase that. Ian Sterling is swinging for the fences and missing, but nobody's trying to be like Rod Gilbert or Catherine Ryan, both of which would not have worked well, especially in this episode. I would have
Like, if we had Catherine Ryan on this episode, I would have hated this episode extensively.
I suppose. Still riding the Series 2 hate train, I see.
No, it's not the Series 2 hate train. It's specifically with regard to the apologize task that we've seen Catherine Ryan do, and how Catherine Ryan is like a borderline psychopath when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, Catherine Ryan is a very...
If you want to hear my thoughts on that, please listen to our Champion of Champions episode, where I audibly recoil at everything that Catherine Ryan did.
One bit of Taskmaster related news before we start proper. Series 16 started.
Yes.
Very good first episode, by the way. I forgot how much I loved Sue Perkins as both a person and a comedian. And I'm really, really excited to see her in particular. Just this whole cast in general is really, really good. I mean, I say that about most casts on Taskmaster, but this one looks great.
Gonna wait until we get to it in many, many, many years.
Many a moon.
That's I'm glad it's good.
Also, they made a whole big stink about the episode coming out on YouTube one day after it premieres on Channel 4 in the UK. But that's all we have Taskmaster-wise news. Let us take a deep dive into Series 8, Episode 3, Stuck in a Mammal Groove. So, Alex Horne and Greg Davies have banter as usual. Alex has had his regular GP checkup. He is 100% blood, no milk, vision, he looks nice, weighs 100 kg, has a heart rate of 100 BPM, cholesterol 100 kph, and his doctor's favourite number is 100, and he can start smoking. That's the banter. Do you have a preference for prize task or another task in particular?
I would like to do the prize task this time, because
sure.
That way we can like do the episode, because you did it last.
Okay, Eagle Eye Joe, did anyone have a Hawaiian shirt count today?
Yes, they did. There were 2 of them. Are we putting the
let's go.
jingle?
Let's go.
Hawaiian shirt count.
So we have it at the opposite ends of the cast today. Ian Sterling is wearing a wonderful shirt that is like a leopard print with flowers on top of the leopard print, and then Sean Gibson is wearing some blue top with I don't really know how to describe that one, but it's a blue top with like black flowers on it. It's very nice. I have a shirt in a different pattern but the same color scheme. That's that same sort of thing.
Yeah, I've seen Joe, and his Hawaiian shirt count collection is plentiful.
I think you've seen the blue shirt that I was talking about. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think you wore it when we went to the Ohio State Fair.
That was not the state fair. That was the county fair.
The
state fair is so much bigger.
What would the state fair be like?
Oh, they have the state fairgrounds. It's like several hundred acres.
Is that what happens next time I'm in? Is that what happens next time I'm in Ohio?
I haven't been to the state fair. I don't think I've ever been. It's down in Columbus. It's like a 2-hour drive.
But I'm going to personally take time out of my summer next year to go and see Joe again. Because as I've said before, his house is amazing.
I'm so glad you liked me for my personality and not for my possessions. Anyways, moving on. I'm going to let that joke sit there because that is in fact a joke. And so this episode is
the prize task.
The prize task is the best burstable thing. That's all it is. Bring in the best burstable thing. I definitely had a joke as soon as that came out that I'm just like, I'm not even going to say that in my own head, lest a telepath judge me. But anyway, fill in your own dirty joke for that. But anyways, we start with Joe Thomas, who brought in a grape, which Joe has big autism energy, I want to say, because he did not realize at the time that like everybody else was bringing in stuff for comedy, and he just sort of filtered it through the vein of data entry and data, like, ascertaining.
Even when you look at it from that
grape.
angle, even when you look at it from that angle, it's still not great.
No, actually, I was thinking of it as he was getting yelled at by everybody else, and there is, a phrase like "pop like a grape." Like, it's not a big phrase, but I would think of as a grape as something you could burst or crush, which he said crush like a grape, but he also did something very interesting. He said, didn't Keats say something about crushing a grape, about bursting a grape? And Ian says that it was like, and like everybody else yells at him, and then Alex, they call on Alex for a ruling, and Alex says it was crush. But I would like to call out YouTube commenter at Daniel Rose 8305, who looked it up, and Joe was actually correct. It in Keats's Ode to Melancholy, though seen of none save him whose strenuous tongue can burst joy's grape against his palate fine. Joe Thomas was correct. I would like to just make that known. But after that, we had...
Of course, Joe Zader would be the only person to go out of that way.
Was it Lou?
It was Paul. It was the long balloon that looked penisine, but also had a penis in its mouth.
The phallic implications of this balloon. He had some relatives stay with his family. Yes. Okay. We're gonna specify this for people who are listening to this audio only. So the balloon is a very
not that there's any other way to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I was implying more for people who hadn't watched the episode or didn't remember the episode. So it is a long yellow balloon that is ostensibly a caterpillar that he received from relatives who were staying over.
Looks
for
nothing
Christmas.
like a caterpillar, by the way.
It's as well as you can represent a caterpillar in a latex balloon. I think they did fine, but it does bear a slight resemblance to either, depending on how SFW you feel like being, a yard glass that you might drink a yard of ale from, or a penis. Because it's got a larger base, it's got a large base, and then it's tall, and what it looks like. And then everybody's saying that it doesn't look like a penis because it doesn't really look like a penis unless you're stretching. Alex comes out of nowhere with this. It does have a penis in its mouth, though, because the caterpillar has like just a little cartoony face on it, and the tongue in its mouth. If you stare at it, and if you are that dirty, it does look very similar to the head of a penis. And I'm sorry to people who are listening to this in public.
I should say, if you're going on a hen do, and of course every hen do has to have penis paraphernalia everywhere. Of course, if we could get away with that, that could be the good episode title, penis paraphernalia. But to keep the title a bit more family friendly, we won't do it. You probably want your money back if those were the balloons you got.
Yeah, well, we don't really do hen do's in the United States. I've definitely never seen the everything covered in penis paraphernalia.
Bachelorette party.
No. I know what you're talking about. Nobody really does the penis paraphernalia here, as opposed to as much as they do in England. I'm sure it's done, just not nearly as much. And yeah, that's what Paul brought in. The next is from Lou, brought
it's Ian next. It's Ian next.
Jesus, I have Lou so far up on the list, and not on purpose. Ian, okay, yeah, here we go. Ian thought outside the box. He brought in a teddy bear that can burst into song, which is, it's a fair play for actually reading the rules and going through it like that. But the problem is that his execution sucked. He clearly had this idea in the middle of the night, and because he was lying in bed next to his girlfriend, and so had to very quietly whisper into his phone a one-man a cappella version of the Taskmaster theme, which does not sound great, and that is what plays from the bear. Not not 100% on board with that.
The bear looks creepy
just because
as well.
It's a teddy bear. Don't overthink it. But then we have Lou Saunders, who brought in a creme brulee in a coffee jar because, again, this is a thing that you have more in England than you do here. At least I'm not familiar with it. Where you can you burst through the foil protective seal on a coffee jar when you get it for the first time, and so apparently in her family everybody does that, and then you can also burst through a creme brulee. So she has one in the coffee jar, and she put Greg's face on it to try and curry favor. The problem is that Greg Davies is a really weird guy, and apparently meticulously removes the gold foil in a single piece, with a spoon or something like that, and also doesn't think that you can burst through a creme brulee. So she does not do as well as she thought she would. And then finally,
can I make a comment about creme brulees, please? Okay, so this is going to come really random, but you can, obviously, in most major supermarkets, you can get pre-made creme brulees. They've got little bits of foil on top of them, and they're supposed to have this sheet of heated up sugar on top. But the creme brulees that I've had in the past, the sugar doesn't come preheated. You've got to preheat it yourself, which is extremely difficult if you do not have a blowtorch. So I've usually just had to eat creme brulee.
Well, that is what a creme brulee is. That's the whole point of a creme brulee, Emerson.
Yes, but we don't. If you do not possess the ability to heat up the sugar yourself, it's not the same.
Simply buy a blowtorch. Problem solved. Make a blowtorch out of ordinary household objects. Did you know that an aerosol can and a lighter can produce a very flamethrower-esque effect? Don't worry, nothing can possibly go wrong. But,
yeah, talk about Sean Gibson.
Yes, I can. So I just want to point out, as I was going through especially around Lou and Ian, I was thinking something that I would bring in at that point was acne, because it's very satisfying when you pop a pimple on yourself.
Yeah, but you have to be careful
hurts a little bit.
You have to be careful because if you do it too hard or don't get the right angle, it will bleed and or scar.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But just the general concept of popping a pimple. I also just want it to be said, now that I've said this, I don't like those pimple popper YouTube channels because, popping a pimple is okay, but what those people do is fucking disgusting because it's usually these horrid wounds, sort of like what Sean Gibson brought in, which was a representation of a blister she got on her own ass after a 24-hour charity Zumbathon, which is a very lengthy sentence, which requires 2 days of backstory, I feel, to explain the concept of Zumba charities and 24-hour Zumba charities. But it's to represent the blister on her own ass that her husband lanced for her. And honestly, it would be really satisfying to lance that, I bet. And so she's the only... So we've got now 3 things that you could burst, 1 thing that it's alleged you could burst, and a teddy bear. So, going into the scores, Greg gives Sean 5 points, Paul Sinha gets 4, Ian 3, Joe 2, and Lou.
Should we do Taskmaster Joe?
Yes, we shall.
It's the Taskmaster and his name is Joe, and he's gonna tell us what we should know. It's Taskmaster Joe.
And so I am going to keep Sean in first, I'm going to give a joint third place to Paul and Joe. Lou, I kind of get the idea behind it, so she's going to get second place, and then Ian gets last because it would have worked if his execution had been in any way competent, but it wasn't. So he gets that.
Yeah. Shall we talk the first task?
Yes, we shall.
So,
this
VT task 1, and actually no, I'll read this task out first. Build the best volcano. You have 10 minutes to design your volcano blueprint, then you have 20 minutes to build and demonstrate your volcano. Your time starts now. It's like every school project, every school science, every school geography project come true. Because everyone, especially everyone in the UK, has had to make a model volcano at least some point in their life for school. And every method's the same.
And that's a very common thing to do in the States as well. But I think the method might be different, judging by nobody chose baking soda and vinegar.
Yeah, they all opted for the Diet Coke and mints.
It's Diet Coke and Mentos, specifically.
Yeah, that's true. So there's this interesting thing where they've got like a bit of Perspex plastic for the contestants to draw their blueprints on, which is kind of cool because you've got the camera. It's like you've got the contestant on one side, the camera on the other, and the screen in the middle, so you can get the reverse of what they're doing. And Ian thinks that the vol part of the name is the liquid and the Kano part is the solid, based on, he says, where are we going to get the vol from, or something. I didn't remember. I didn't write down what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Joe is up first, and I think Joe made the closest to a traditional volcano, like a traditional homemade volcano. So
I actually strongly disagree with that.
Well, it worked the best.
No, it worked the best, but it was an upturned piece of paper with an upturned something, and that was it.
Yeah, it was.
And I didn't notice much else. Like I didn't really.
He sort of just got
a lot.
He just got a brown cone of paper, put it over a Coke bottle. The funny thing was, this might have been Joe, but the Coke can didn't quite cover the whole Coke bottle. So you could just, it was sort of like a lampshade shaped. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and he also did this really dumb thing where it was like the first time he tried to pour a bottle of Diet Coke into another bottle that presumably had the Mentos into it, and it was which is not how that works. Actually, none of this is how any of this works. I would like to point that out.
Science with Joe.
Oh, trust me, in about as soon as we're done with the actual as soon as we get to Ian's task, I will explain why Ian's did what Ian's did, because that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Speaking of Ian, I suppose we could talk about him now. So, Ian goes full buck wild when actually building the volcano. He gets this massive pipe, and he buries it in a pile of earth and stones, and he pours 2 whole big bottles of Coke into the pipe, and he fills a little net with Mentos so that he can sort of hold the net from afar and then drop the net in, and it would all like shoot up, you know. And he made like a proper mountain. He got these little figurines of the first 5 champions of Taskmaster, well, the first 5, which makes me think that maybe these 4 series, 6, 7, 8, 9, were recorded extremely close to each other. I know all 4 series came out within the span of like just under 2 years.
Either that, or he was trying to make because he was also saying, "I'll see you on the next Champion of Champions." Maybe they'd made some kind of figure set for Champion of Champions and not for any of the other ones yet. That's a possibility.
I suppose, but I think it was funny. But this is like, what happens next is probably the greatest anticlimax in the history of history. So,
I would not say that.
In the history of Ian Sterling's life. How about that?
That's true. That's true.
So, what Ian does is he lets the net go, and he's hoping that the net would drop down and the whole thing would shoot up. But only a tiny little bit comes out because, and I'm reading this directly off taskmaster.info because I still don't know how it works, he had not created a bottleneck in his volcano to increase pressure. His eruption was extremely disappointing.
Okay, that's partially why. That's not why. So, time for Science with Joe, where you will learn whether you like it or not. So, the reason that Mentos and Diet Coke works is that it actually doesn't have to be Diet Coke. It can be any carbonated liquid, but for reasons that aren't entirely clear to me, diet sodas, specifically like Diet Coke, seems to be the most successful. But it'll work with any carbonated liquid, and the thing behind it is that inside a bottle of soda, or beer, or sparkling water, or anything like that, there is carbon dioxide dissolved into the liquid. That's what comes out when it bubbles. That's what makes something carbonated. And when you drop the Mentos into the bottle, like assuming you're doing this outside, do not do this in your house. Do this outside.
Not many people followed that advice, by the way, at least on this show.
But do it outside if you're going to do Mentos and Diet Coke. If it's in your house and you have to clean it up, what happens is you will drop it into the bottle, and the Mentos surface is ever so slightly rough on like a microscopic level. There's little dimples in it, like a golf ball. And the carbon dioxide latches onto the dimples in the Mento and forms a bubble. And because there's like millions of these little surfaces on the Mentos, there's a very large opportunity for Mentos to create bubbles. And so that's what creates the fountain of foam coming out of the top of the bottle, is that the carbon dioxide is looking to escape. It's still in the liquid, so it escaping pulls the liquid out with it against gravity. That's why it stops like before the bottle is empty. So that's why when you do this properly, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to open the bottle, immediately shove the Mentos into it, and then immediately it will go off, because that is the one you have the most carbon dioxide in it. What Ian did was he took 4 liters of diet soda and poured it into a much larger pipe, and then dunked the Mentos into it. And by doing that, he essentially let the soda go flat. That's also why it doesn't work with flat soda, is because there's no more carbon dioxide in it. And so by letting the CO2 out, by opening the bottles and then decanting them into a pipe and then letting the pipe sit there even for like 10 seconds, everything is gone. And then, so he drops the Mentos in, and there's some residual carbon dioxide in there, and it just goes, and that's it. This is also why Joe Thomas,
we need to keep this moving
more correctly. Yeah, hold on. This is Science with Joe still. More correctly, that's why his didn't like shoot higher, because in terms of the bottleneck, he only just had it open. You can actually like 3D print, and you can make, or you can just stick your thumb over the top, and that will create a much greater pressure bottleneck, which will shoot it further. That's if Ian had actually done this correctly, or if physics had changed that this would work, the drilling the hole in the top of the pipe actually would have created a successful bottleneck. It's just that he didn't. Physics doesn't work like that.
And that was Science with Joe. Paul Sinhar has made a volcano by covering a bottle of Coke in a green blanket and using a bike pump to squirt Coke out of the top of the bottle. It's fine.
Which is a valid thing.
Greg didn't love it too much.
Okay, so it did look like somebody peeing up, like somebody pissing, but it's, at least it wasn't more Mentos and Diet Coke. Because we'd seen correct versus incorrect already.
Okay. Sean has made a volcano by covering a bin in a brown blanket. There's pipe cleaners, jelly and dirt, and she set sparkle as a light on top of it. It looks like a shitty birthday cake.
Well, it looks like a volcano. Here's the thing. The task just says, make the best volcano. It doesn't say anything about the volcano erupting. You could seriously have just built, you could have, sculpted in 10 minutes, let's say, a representation of Mount Fuji, and said, see, I've made Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is a very famously dormant volcano. So that's technically a volcano, and if it was better than everyone else's, you'd still win. It never said it had to erupt.
That is very true. You could have maybe just sculpted a volcano out of clay, like a little a very small one, like you maybe get in a souvenir shop, and
that would be a volcano.
That's true. There was nothing in the task that said the volcano had to erupt. That was all just a hurdle they themselves created.
Unless you're Ian Thomas and think that Kano and Vol are two separate things.
Do you mean
Joe whatever one it is. Which one of them said that?
I don't know.
You know who it was. You talked about it earlier. It doesn't matter. Continue. Ian Thomas and Joe Sterling, or Ian Sterling and Joe Thomas. They're just names.
Lou Saunders says, speaking of clay, Lou Saunders has made a volcano by folding clay around a rock and painting it with spray paint. She then lit several indoor fireworks of the type that create a snake of ash as they burn. And Greg liked this.
Which I liked it too. I actually was kind of thinking that another thing you could have done for this was, there's a chemistry demo that you can do, and I do not know the slightest bit about what chemicals they are. It'll basically shoot a pillar of foam 7 feet into the air if you do that. And so I've seen people do that with paper mache volcanoes before. So scores. Do you want to do them?
Joe and Lou both get 5. Paul gets 3. Ian and Sean both get 2. Do you have any objections, Joe?
Let me think. Yeah, I like Lou and Sean's the best. Paul's was funny. Joe didn't make a volcano, and then Ian's was a failure. So, in that order, it would be Lou gets 5, Sean gets 4, Paul gets 3, Joe gets 2, Ian gets 1. And then
Task 2.
There's an adapted task version of this. It was Stormmaster Season 3, Episode 6, which is actually called Volcanoes in Eruption. And now we are on to the next one, which is work out what Alex is wearing. And this task says as follows: work out what Alex Horn is wearing next door. Both you and Alex must stay in your seats at all times. Alex may only communicate with Alex's horn. Alex Horn's horn. You have a maximum of 15 minutes. Fastest win.
We made that joke before.
Yeah, your time starts now. Yes, we have. Some notes. This is at a railway museum. Alex and the contestants are sitting in different compartments of a Pullman car.
Literally back to back. Back to back.
Yeah, they're in like adjoining compartments on a Pullman dining car in a railway museum. I think this is the Buckingham Railway Center because they filmed the other bit there, but
yeah. Also,
I don't know for certain.
Greg was angry that this task was not filmed in the caravan, and he said he would talk to Alex after the show for spending too much money.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the Buckingham Railway Center because it's got an indoor building. I don't know if they have an indoor building. It doesn't matter. But actually it does matter, but only to me. So to just sort of clear out the idea behind this, Alex is dressed in a parrot costume and can only communicate by honking a horn. So basically what this task is a bunch of grown people shouting at Alex through a wall as he honks a horn at them. So it's one of those
that
comedy
doesn't sound weird at all.
It's one of those comedy joke horns too that goes like honk honk. So
a clown horn.
Yes. So we start with Joe Thomas, who is experiencing what is probably some form of his worst nightmare, because almost everybody has the honk once for yes, twice for no system worked out in the first few minutes. Joe apparently spends a very long time trying to figure this out, and then just completely gets stuck on the fact that he doesn't know he doesn't know how to ask the correct questions. Alex then further confuses him by honking 3 times to indicate some sort of ambiguous answer, which he does with nobody else. But he got confused, but at some point he started asking about warm-blooded animals versus mammals, and in the end just sort of got very hung up on different taxonomical differences. At the end, he ran out of time. He did not guess anything and went wallaby very defeatedly for the answer. It went very badly. After that, we get Paul and Ian together, where Paul Sinha continues to show that that his position on the chaser is very, very much in jeopardy, because Ian Sterling is just everybody but Joe Thomas gets that Alex is a parrot. And so Ian is just guessing very, very different items of clothing before eventually getting to is it a one piece? Is it a costume? And then animal, and just shouting jungle animals, because he got jungle. And he eventually got bird.
Did we mention that Alex was dressed as a parrot?
Yes, I did. And
yeah, it's a cool looking costume, by the way. It's you can't even see Alex's head, which I think is...
No, it's actually really... Ian eventually gets it in 7 minutes and 37 seconds that Alex was dressed as a bird, then a parrot, while Paul Sinha goes through animals, and then he eventually figures out birds. And then eventually he's just asking Alex, is the first letter an A? Is the first letter a B? And going that through PAR before having to rule out partridge before getting parrot. God, there was a line that he said right around here that was hilarious. I got, that was quite a burn at Ian, but I cannot for the life of me remember. It was right in the scoring section here, because he's I lost to Ian. I lost to somebody who, nope, I can't remember it. It was something that Ian had said, and he was just I lost to that, because he took 8 minutes and 36 seconds, so he took about a minute longer. And then after that, we have Lou and Sean. And this one is really funny, because everybody else, one honk yes, 2 honks no. Lou Saunders, 2 honks yes, 1 honk no. So, they both, which actually confused Alex, which was really funny, but everybody, again, both of them get this. Lou takes 7 minutes 11, and Sean gets 5 minutes 14 by guessing actually eventually, like, was this an animal in The Lion King, and going through all the animals in The Lion King. But the filming of this is great because they actually are, because the intercutting of this is Lou asking and getting 2 honks for yes, and then immediately cutting to Sean, who's getting 2 honks for no, or like 1 honk for yes, 2 honks for no. It's a very fun, like, back and forth. They didn't really show in any of the other ones. But again, and then we're onto the scoring, which is Sean was the fastest, then Lou, then Ian, then Paul, and then Joe would have gotten 1, but he never even got what Paul was, so he gets nothing. And then
has this task been adapted anywhere?
Yes, there was. Season 1, Episode 8 of Taskmaster Portugal. The assistant was inside the caravan on the Portugal set wearing a cow costume and used an air horn, not a horn. That's it.
That's it.
Onwards to a task that... Onwards to the next task. Sorry.
Yep. VT Task 3. Alex is in the living room. In 20 minutes from now, you must apologise to Alex for something you have done in that time. Best apology for the worst thing wins. Your time starts now. So, yeah, you mentioned earlier that this was like, if Catherine Ryan had done this, it would have been a disaster. And it is a bit
Yeah. This is spiritually similar.
This is like the make the biggest mess task.
Yeah, this is the spiritual successor to that, and I am really glad that they got 5 people who weren't crazy, because there was like a YouTube commenter who put on there that, like, imagine if this had been given to Rod Gilbert. And it was like, and the response was like, he would have burned down the house and very lackadaisically said sorry. And I'm just like, yeah, he would have. Like this is not a task you can give to lunatics, which is what, like, a good chunk of the contestants from earlier seasons are. Like, the worst...
Not many of these guys are lunatics.
No, the worst thing we got here was from Lou, which, you know, seems bad. But considering what Catherine Ryan did, so much worse.
Joe Thomas, he has performed a song about how he wished Alex was dead, and the song, I might as well just play it here.
Oh, have you heard the good news? Alex Horn is finally dead. Knowing that Alex is dead, I feel like I can finally breathe.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite harsh, as I say.
Alex's murder is evidence for the existence of God.
Alex's murder? Well, yeah, murder's a bit strong.
A person should be let off and knighted. Fuck off, Alex!
And you stand by what you said? Well, I stand by those feelings. I'm not saying I'd act on them necessarily today or this week.
Well, thank you for coming clean. I appreciate your honesty.
Okay, no problem. Okay, well, good stuff. You know, you're a good bloke. Okay,
thank you.
See you later.
And then he just half-assedly says sorry and calls Alex a good bloke at the end, which not a great apology.
It wasn't, but it also didn't, like, I personally didn't think the song was that bad. Like obviously, like, I wish Alex was dead, but it's like, it's kind of a weird sort of vibe that it's going for. Not as much as that. I'm also really getting the vibes from this that, unlike past seasons, the contestants actually respect Alex as a human being, and therefore are not doing terrible things to him for their own schadenfreudistic enjoyment.
That's an interesting word.
You can do that with the English language. Yeah.
You can indeed. Who's next? Paul claimed he had cravings, ate a bunch of food from the fridge, and then literally just half-assedly said sorry to Alex again. Amazingly, even worse than Joe.
No, I really liked what Paul did because it's not what he did, which is that he ruined the fridge. He like ate all the food in the fridge and ruined it. It's the serial killer-esque way that he tells Alex he did this, and the fact that Alex was like, "Yeah, I wasn't there."
Cereal? Are we spelling cereal cereal because he ate food?
As much as I would like to, I was spelling it serial. Also, you don't store cereal in the fridge, so he didn't kill any. But also, my favorite part of that whole thing is that Alex was like, in the studio, Alex was like, yeah, I wasn't in the house for this, but the crew said it was quite odd. So it was very, very interesting that he did that. I kind of enjoyed that.
Sean Gibson is when things start to get really interesting, because this reminds me of something that maybe someone like Lisa Tarbuck would do, in a way. So,
yeah, this one was also...
Let me say, because this is my bit. She gets a photo of Alex, and she photoshops it to make him look naked, and she sends it to Greg from Alex's phone. And then she just apologizes by writing the word "soz" on a plate using sweets and a tea cake.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was in a pattern. I thought the candy was the apology. Oh, that's much more interesting. That's funny. I thought it was just like the candy itself was the apology.
See what happens when you wait, Joe?
No, I don't. Also, apparently, according to Alex's wife, while the figure in the image has small testicles and a large penis, Alex is apparently the opposite. So, second penis reference of the day. And on another note, I do like that Alex actually seemed horrified up until the point that he realized that it had only been sent to Greg. Which, interestingly, Greg never really mentioned getting this. Like, usually you get, like, Greg will mention this, like, right after that. He never did. So I don't know if Alex, like, called him immediately afterwards or something.
He should have just left it as is. That would have been so funny. And so Ian pies Alex in the face, which, I mean, Alex has sat on a cake, but I don't think he's been pied in the face since the blooper task from the very first series. And then he performs a song for Alex. It was sort of like the anti-Joe Thomas, where the thing he did was... So the thing Joe did was interesting, and the apology was not great. The thing Ian did was not great, but the apology was interesting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What I like with Ian is that Alex is sitting in the house, and the timer only has like 45 seconds left on it, implying that Ian waited 19 minutes to smash the pie into Alex's face and then leave. And then sing the song and leave, which is very funny. But actually, I'm going to say this, both Ian and Lou's apologies of going from causing physical harm to Alex and then immediately launching into the apology for said physical harm is hilarious.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm watching something on my phone because I get distracted very easily.
I'm glad to know that I'm entertaining you. Are you going to talk about...
I'm going to talk about Lou. So Lou bursts a water balloon on Alex's head, then leads him out to his car, which has been caked in flour, and she apologizes by signing up to several classes and services with his real phone number. So that's
including Scientology and a bunch of other courses that he is now on first-name basis with many of these people. Another interesting observation I had was they had a camera view from inside Alex's car, and again, it's not mentioned on. It does seem like Alex's car is filled with planks of wood, so either he just drives around like that, or it was some part of the prank they didn't air. Either way, very interesting. For anyone who's curious, Alex drives a Ford EcoSport,
which is a terrible, terrible little car, regardless of whether or not its color is red. Greg hated the color. I don't particularly care for the car.
Okay, so the scores: Lou Sanders gets 5, Ian 4, Sean 3, Joe 2, and Paul 1. Do you have any objections, Joe?
Oh God, let me think. No. Yeah, I don't really have anything against it. I don't really. Yeah, it's the.
Fair enough.
It's not worth like coming up with a whole other idea for.
Should we talk the live task and then just be done with
this? Yes, this one. This one. It's 5 idiots in sleeping bags. This one. Oh, hold on. There's an adapted task. I'm so sorry. The worst thing and make the best apology was also done in. It's another full Scandinavian sweep. Basti Test Season 4, Episode 9, Stormmester Season 3, Episode 1, and Surmastari Season 2, Episode 2. Moving along to the sleeping bag task, we have the task brief is as follows. Get into one sleeping bag with your arms through the armholes, the zip zipped up, and the hood on your head. Then stand to attention, salute the Taskmaster for a full 5 seconds, then get into the other sleeping bag with your arms through the armholes, the zip zipped up, and the hood on your head while still in the first sleeping bag. Then skip once. Fastest wins. So, again, physical comedy here, very hard to describe through the medium of a podcast. Things to note is that Joe Thomas, absolutely on point for physicality here. He was in his sleeping bag saluting before just about anybody else had gotten their arms through it. Everybody but Joe seemed to be baffled by the fact that the armholes on the sleeping bag also were zipped, so they had to unzip the sleeping bag armholes once they were already like halfway into it. Paul Sinha apparently had busted his shoulder at some point previous to this event, and Alex had like asked him if it was going to be an issue, and Paul had said no, and it turns out that he should have said yes, because this was a fairly difficult challenge, to the point where at the end of it, Paul had barely gotten into his sleeping bag. Even it's like everybody, even as like Sean is writhing on the floor getting into her second sleeping bag, he's barely in the first, and collective action is the only way that he will be able to continue. And because Alex asked him if he wants to keep going, he says fuck yes, and then everybody else helps him into his second sleeping bag, thus allowing the task to complete. Then, of course, we did have some other problems, which is that almost nobody saluted for the full 5 seconds. So
that is
so
true.
they got a lot of lower points. So Joe did finish first, but he only saluted for 3.2 seconds, so he only got 1 point. Ian finished second, but did everything properly, so he received 5 points. Lou finished third, but was the second to do everything properly, so she received 4 points. Paul finished last, but didn't salute, I don't think at all, at 1 point, and so received 1 point. And Sean finished fourth, but only saluted for 2.09 seconds, and so she received 1 point. And then I also just want to make one other comment, which is that skipping in my head is where you're like bounding through a field, that sort of skipping. Everybody in this seemed to understand that it was skipping with a...
It's called a skipping rope.
In America, it's a jump rope. That's why I didn't understand that at first. They used the drawstring from the bag.
Of all the things to ironically trip you up, it's the skipping rope.
Yeah, I didn't understand until I was like, oh yeah, that's right, they call it a skipping rope. In America, it's a jump rope, but they used the drawstring from one of the bags that held the sleeping bag to actually do that. Also, on another like production note, when they actually introduce this task, like when they say go up to the stage, they show the wax seal getting stamped, and it pulls up to reveal the Japanese font letters. They also have a Japanese style sound effect instead of the usual musical sting, which is the first time I think they've done that. As far as
no,
this
they've
show.
done it. They've done it every episode so far.
but with the wax seal like in an interstitial as opposed to at the front of the episode, at the front of the show. They usually, I don't think they've done it
We'll have to keep our eye out for that.
Yeah. And then there's an adapted task version of this. Season 1, episode 8, Taskmaster Portugal, and that's it. Who won the episode? I forget.
Lou Saunders did, second episode in a row.
Woo moo.
So yeah, this episode's been a bit rough to record. I'll say hopefully none of this will happen again, but it can be a little bit funny when it does.
It'll always happen again. But hey, I think we're under 1 hour, or like maybe a minute over an hour.
With all the stuff we'll edit out, yeah, probably will.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, Joe. Bye, everyone.
Right. Bye.
Bye.